So, like, I know when people are like, oh, hey, my favorite season's like spring or fall. And I'm like, really? When the weather is like the most nice, how can you say something why would you say something so brave?
Right. Yeah, well, it's just weird how, like, just a couple weeks ago we were like in the single digits, then we went back up to the 50s, and it was snowing all last week, and now that's all gonna melt away apparently, but then it's gonna freeze over, and it's just somebody in the natural ecological power grab or whatever you want to call it. They can't make up their mind. The weather cannot make up its mind.
Yeah, yeah. One could say that it's incomprehensible.
Ah!
And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on all sides of planet Earth. And the way that we measure that distinction is I send one of my dogs to Ukraine, I send the other dog to Uganda, but they meet each other by taking the long way around. This podcast is called Hey, Listen to This. And it is hosted by two dazzling good-looking men who share the same middle name. I am the one. I am the only. I am the one who just got the notification that Adam Fox went on LTIR after his little like stint on IR in the first place. So why can't a Fox stay healthy? Ryan James Kearns.
And I'm the one, the only, forget about a fox being healthy, can your dog swim to Ukraine, Matthew James Durzik. And for those of you wondering what it is that we do here on Hey, Listen to This, it's right there in the title. Every week, me and Ryan come together to discuss an album that we have listened to, a music album of our choice, and we go through it track by track, line by line, note by note, pick out what we like, what we don't like, what we thought could have been improved, what we thought stood out the most, notable performances by the musicians, if there are any. And at the end of the episode, we give the album a rating out of 10. We recommend an album based off of the album we just listened to. We choose another album, and the cycle begins anew. Hakuna Matata, Amen. So, Ryan, what did we talk about last time on Hey, Listen to This in our first review of 2026?
For our first review of 2026, it was the last review in the miniseries that I took us on. I threw that challenge upon myself, and you came along this journey with me. And for those of you who weren't with that miniseries, what that challenge was, well, typically in our show, I'm the one who typically picks like newer albums. So I wanted, well, not the one, but I typically pick newer albums. And I wanted to, challenge myself to dive into 11 albums that were released before the year 2000. And, that miniseries was I would say a huge success. We actually went, we had a succession of banger after banger after banger in that series. So it was an absolute blessing going through that series. I actually discovered my love of Black Sabbath and Joy Division through that series there. But yeah, and the series did conclude by talking about everybody's English rock band that were once creeps but broke out of their shells by getting the bends. And, the album that we talked about was The Bends by Radiohead. And for me, very happy doing that review. I've always been I don't want to say a huge fan of Radiohead, but I've always very much admired the work that they put out throughout the history of their career. So yeah, it was a pleasure going through that record with you last week. How about you, Matthew? What were your feelings about the Bends?
My feelings were pretty good. Again, Radiohead is a band that even after the review, I would still qualify myself in a novice to Radiohead because the only two albums I've listened to front to back are the one we talked about last week, which was The Bends, and Kid A, which was many eons ago. I might have listened to OK Computer sometime in that stretch, but I do not remember doing so. So that is one I'll have to visit/revisit sometime down the line. But I'm glad we talked about the bands. I'm glad that, like you said, this mini series that you have brought forth not only has been a nice trip down memory lane with some of the selections, but also an introduction to some bands that I was relatively unfamiliar with, like Joy Division, like Slint. Like that one was a left field review for sure, but it was a very wonderful mini series, and I'm glad that we concluded with a solid album called The Bends. And if you want to hear our thoughts on that, once you're done with this episode or right now, we're not going to force you to do what you want to do. Take a listen to that episode about The Bends by Radiohead.
Now that we've finished the bends, we've officially recapped what we did last week, and like you said, dear listener out there, if you're kind of curious about how that episode went, just go back one episode, spend over 2 hours and some odd minutes diving into that episode, and then come back to this episode. Make a Sunday out of it, man. But I digress, Matthew. Without any hesitation, we must progress on in the year of 2026, baby. And the way that we're going to progress is by, just doing another review. So why don't you tell the listener what album, what artists are we covering this week here on Hey Listen to This?
So the artist we're covering this week is the alt-rock, indie rock, folk rock, DIY rock band known as Big Thief. And the album we're going to be talking about is their 2025 release entitled Double Infinity. Now, why are we talking about this album? Well, for a myriad of reasons. First of all, as I mentioned at the end of last week's episode, I had gone the entire year of 2025 without talking about or picking an album to talk about from 2025. There were some albums that were close, particularly Jelly Roll's Beautifully Broken from 2024, but none from 2025. That changes with the first selection of mine for 2026. And the other reason is that, as we'll get into, I have a little bit of an affinity for Big Thief. But before we get into that, some of you might be wondering, holy crap, wait, hold on, what's going on? What is this Big Thief you talk about? What have they thieved? What have they stole? Are they stealers of something? Well, ironically enough, we are recording this on January 6th, but they did not steal anything. Except maybe the hearts of several thousands of their fans. So let's get into what Big Thief is, who Big Thief are, and then before I talk about my affinity, I will throw it to Ryan for his affinity. So, Big Thief is a band that was formed in Brooklyn, New York, back in 2015. And the original lineup consisted of Adrian Lanker, who was the chief vocalist and guitarist, Buck Meek, James Creventia, and then also Max Oliarchik, who is on bass. Now, we'll start with Lanker because she's sort of the chief personality in Big Thief, and she has also branched out into a solo career simultaneous with Big Thief. She's released her own stuff on the side. Not in a Paul McCartney, screw you guys, I'm going home. John Lennon, screw you guys, I'm going home too. George Harrison, I was already ready to go home 2 albums ago. And Ringo Starr, what? Type of solo stuff, but more or less, hey, while we're doing this, I'm also going to do this. Like, okay, that's cool. So Lanker was born in 1991, July 9th. I don't know what sign that is, Ryan. You could probably help me out on that one. And she was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. So she is an American. And something I did not realize until looking up, she grew up in a cult.
Wow! Well, that's interesting. I was about to say that's fun, but that might be that is disrespectful to people who have grown up in cults. Or I mean, if you're in a cult right now and you're listening to us, I mean, I'm sure you're happy. I digress. That's a rabbit hole I'm going down.
Let's see. Scratch off number 2. Do not make a January 6th joke. But yeah, she grew up in a Christian cult, and After a few years, the family that she was in decided, yeah, no, we're not doing this cult thing anymore. So they moved to Minnesota, and as a kid, she grew up and was homeschooled. Her parents got divorced. Her father started teaching her music. She ended up teaching herself guitar, and she was also very good at karate. That I did not know and expect. She was a state champion in karate for 3 consecutive years. For context of how hard it is to win 3 championships in a row, just look at the National Hockey League, where that has not been done since the early 1980s, which was about a decade before Adrienne Lenker was born. But once she grew up and she tried public school to not necessarily successful ideals, she would eventually find her way to Boston, where she met one guitarist, Buck Meek. And then together, just as a duo, they released a pair of EPs in 2013 and 2014 entitled A-Sides and B-Sides, which is a little ambitious, but that's, aside the point. And then, after Oliarchik and Krivchenia joined the band, they became known as Big Thief. And as much as I would like to dive into what were they named before they were named Big Thief, I could not find such information. Ryan, you have been spared. So their first album was released back in 2016 entitled Masterpiece. And while not necessarily a commercial success, and you're going to find that as a theme throughout, they were sought after by critics who thought that the album was very strong and very powerful. And they carried that over the course of their next 3 albums, which were 2017's Capacity, 2019's UFOF, and another album from 2019 entitled Two Hands. Now, with the 2 2019 albums, they started to creep into the Billboard 200, with UFOF hitting 142 and Two Hands hitting 113. But mostly, they weren't necessarily trying to be Maroon 5. They weren't trying to be Nickelback. They just wanted to put their records out there, and if anybody liked them, cool. If not, cool. And all the while, Lenker was releasing her own solo albums, including Abyss Kiss in 2018, and 2 in 2020 entitled Songs and Instrumentals. Now, their breakthrough album came in 2022 with the album entitled Dragon, New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You. And we will talk about that album in a little bit when I talk about My Affinity. But that album broke through on a mainstream level, not only once again gathering critical acclaim, but reaching the top 40 of the Billboard 200, peaking at number 31. So now they had a little bit of a reputation, as it were. But after a few years of side projects, another solo EP from Lenker, they came back together for this album that we're going to be talking about today, which is Double Infinity in 2025. Not quite as successful on the charts, but I'm willing to say that reflects more on 2025 than it does Big Thief, because 2025 in music, just burn the files. Let's not talk about it. But that being said, Ryan, that is a very brief overview of Big Thief, the nuts and bolts of it. I will throw it over to you. What is your association with this band that we're talking about today?
So before I get into my association with the band itself, I'm gonna, close some threads that you kind of unintentionally, threw my way in your overview of the group. So, according to, what I was able to find, Big Thief was initially named Buck and Annie. So, it was an informal name, and they, so closing that thread right there. And the other thread I want to close is Adrienne Lenker's astrological sign. She's a Cancer. So, for those of you who are Cancers out there, in the astrological sense, shout out to you. You might be able to identify with Adrienne Lenker as a whole. So, you do you, honey boo boo. So like now that those threads have been closed, my relationship with the group as a whole, I got into them. I don't know if it was through the means of my favorite music critic, Anthony Fantano, or they just came across my music streaming algorithm. Either way, when their debut album came out, Masterpiece, it came across my earbuds somehow, some way. I don't question it though, because what I found with that album is like a group that I really liked, like what they were bringing to the table, like on the acoustic, folksy, like indie kind of sense. Like it was really speaking to 2016 Ryan, and like this was like Ryan, like out of college, like just like making his way as an adult. So like it was really like I don't want to say fully flushed out Ryan in terms of musical sense, because like I like to think like through our venture here, like I'm flushing that out every week, man. But like I was like I was post like me discovering that there's other music other than like classic rock, but like I digress. So after Masterpiece came out, it seemed like they released an album like every year. I might be wrong in that, but it seemed like every single album that they came out with, I was just like, oh hey, that's good. Oh hey, that's good. Like since there wasn't a whole lot of hype behind them, like Big Thief kind of felt like one of these bands for me that felt like kind of like one of my music. This is mine. Like no one's talking about this act, but I know them. I respect them. So and so over the years, I was really just appreciating what they were putting down, and then like the album that you talked about that was their mainstream breakthrough album, that that the Behemoth album released in 2022, Dragon Doom, Warm Mountain, I Believe in You. Like I was really taken back by that album. Like it was like of course like one of their biggest album to date, and like the way that that album was able to like just really run the gamut, and just how like massive it was. Like I really enjoyed what was going on there, and I was really excited for what like was to come. And like I did take brief ventures into like Adrian Lanker's like solo material, but nothing really stuck with me. I thought it was fine, but like it was one of those things that was just like, oh hey, listen to this. I didn't even put it in the like the metaphorical like musical freezer. I just threw it away. So I just like I'm never coming back to this. It's fine. But yeah, I was really excited whenever Double Infinity was announced, to the point that I almost considered pre-ordering it on vinyl. If that might be like a crazy thing, I've only think I've done that like a handful of times in my lifetime. But yeah, I ultimately decided to withhold my money. And did I make the right decision? Well, we'll find out here though, because I'm gonna hold my opinions about the album, like at least initially what I thought, for the sake of the review, because that's what we're here for, ladies and gentlemen. Matthew, now that I'm done explaining my background with the group, I'm going to flip it over to you. Tell the listener, tell myself, what is your relationship with Big Thief?
Well, as a former drug commercial once said, I learned it from you! So Big Thief, I had no idea who they are and what they were up until a few years ago when I was down at your house, and I'm not sure what game we were playing. It was probably NHL 23 or 22, or this was well before the Risk days where we started playing that. We might have also been playing Mortal Kombat. That's not out of the realm of possibility, but whatever we were playing. You put on an album in the background, and it happened to be, I would think, side B of Dragon New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You. And immediately, now, before I get into what my thoughts about this was at a time where I did not listen to new music pretty much at all. Like, the last new anything I had listened to between, like throughout the pandemic or close to it, were the new Tyler the Creator albums, which were Igor and Call Me If You Get Lost. Which, that was pretty much it. Everything else was sort of, maybe a song here or an EP there, but mostly it was just me retreating to my comfort music, whether it be oldies or 90s country or classic rock. And then I heard this, and this and a couple other songs from 2022 made me start realizing, hey, wait a minute. Maybe new music can still be good. Because whenever I first heard the first song on side B, which was Sparrow, I was knocked back. I was like, who the hell are these guys and where have they been? Sparrow is a great song. And then there were other great songs off that first side. Actually, throughout the whole record, honestly, like Change, No Reason, Certainty, Spud Infinity, Red Moon, Wake Me Up to Drive. I could just name the entire like at least half the album that I'm just like, yes, that song right there is good. Dried Roses is another one. So that really sort of ignited my thought of how good music could be. That and albums like Jack White's Fear of the Dawn, songs like Beyonce's Break My Soul. 2022 really felt like the first year in a long time I felt like new music meant something, and that album was a good part of the reason why. That being said, I never really dug into their back catalog after that and just sort of put, like you claimed, the thought of Big Thief in the musical freezer, every once in a while taking a bite out of it, putting it in the microwave in the form of listening to Dragon, New War Mountain, I Believe in You, and their songs over and over again. And then I found out that they had released Double Infinity. I think it was through Fantano that I found this out. So I thought, new Big Thief album. And 3 years down the line, now I'm immersing myself and trying to listen to a lot of albums as much as I can. I figured, what the hell, let's give it a try. And I listened to it, put it back in the freezer, and then saved it for this discussion that we are having here today about Double Infinity. So, that's my background with Big Thief.
Now that we've, I think we fully flushed out our backgrounds, and I'm also just trying to visualize you taking something out of a freezer, taking a bite out of it, put it in the microwave, and then putting it back in the freezer.
I probably could have fleshed that out a little bit better as far as my description.
Oh no, that's fine, man. It actually creates a humorous image in my head, and maybe it's just I don't know. I'm not even gonna come up with a metaphor there. Without any further ado, I feel like you and I are both just so ready to dive into our second review of 2026, and that being Double Infinity by Big Thief. And ladies and gentlemen, if you aren't aware, the opening track is indeed Incomprehensible. Matthew, the floor is yours. Take us away.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. And with Incomprehensible, I was taken a little surprised by this first song because while there were a number of songs that had a dance beat on Dragon New War Mountain, I mostly thought of that record as a very rootsy, folksy, very country-tinged, very guitar around the campfire type of feel for the majority of the album. But there were a couple of more percussive tracks like Wake Me Up to Drive and Heavy Bend that had more of a pop influence. And I feel like that's the side we're getting with Big Thief on this track. Because you get that beat at the beginning that sounds very early, mid-90s, sort of psychedelic influence trance dance. And I'm thinking, this is Big Thief. Okay. Not what I was expecting. But the groove is very good. And on top of this very frantic beat that you get from the likes of Krivchenia and also Buck Meek and Adrian on guitar, you get Adrian Lanker's opening lines of incomprehensible, let me be. And it's very important that she starts the song like this because the rest of the song teeters on being, well, incomprehensible. Because the lines that come after this very much seem very stream of consciousness, more like rhymes than they are actual lyrics. Like they're not telling a story. They're just, here's what I'm feeling. I feel this. I can't really say it in proper words, so here's some words that will do the job. And it's weird. This is one of several songs on this record that feel like it's like trying to be stream of consciousness, but yet it's a little too crafted to truly be stream of consciousness. But in either case, this is Adrian saying, this is what I feel. I need to get this out of my system. I don't care if it sounds like garbage or if it sounds like something you would hear from someone who's doing very, very bad at a bus stop. I don't care. I'm going to get this out, and this is how it's going to come out. And overall, the effect, I would say, is very solid because the music carries a good chunk of it. Like, the worst thing you could possibly say about this song is that it's one of those songs that sounds good as long as you're not paying attention. But if you are paying attention, it's not bad either. It's just very heh. Because, again, it just sort of goes all over the place. But that was the intention. And over the course of the album, we get more context as to why Adrian Lenker is feeling incomprehensible with her words. So I think this is a really good start to the record, but not good enough to crack my top songs. And for full disclosure, I have a top 3 on Double Infinity and a bottom 1.
And for me, like, to answer, like, literally what you were just saying about, like, your top songs and your bottom 1, I have a full gamut. I have a top 3 and bottom 3. And, like, yeah. I'm ready to go full Leroy Jenkins here today, man, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. No. So, yeah, a lot of things that you mentioned in your dissection about the track, I agree with, but I think as an overall package and an appreciation front, I'm a bit lower on this track than you. I'm gonna start, like, right out of the game, talk about, like, the stream of consciousness lyrics that you were alluding to. And, like, from my understanding, as of late, and this was really echoed in, like, a live recording that Adrian Lenker did, like, she's trying to have more of a, like, hey, I'm just gonna be, a free spirited individual. I'm not gonna have anything, like, edited, like, whatever comes out, and that's how we're gonna record it. And, like, there's some points where that's good, like, a la freeform jazz, like, some of that stuff is pretty good. But then you get, like, stuff where it just seems like you're just saying words, and, like, for me, like, the lyrics just come out half baked. Like, if you want to have a reference point, the whole second verse just kind of seems like she was walking down the street and just, like, was just noting, like, hey, this is what was going on. Like, the lyrics about pine trees, eras, ravens, crows, Ontario, stereo, Lake, Old Woman Bay. Like, it's the same kind of criticism that I had when we were doing Paul Simon's Graceland, like, with one of his most notable tracks in there, being You Can Call Me Al, where it's just, like, it's just very stream of consciousness. And, like, I don't know. On one end, like, sometimes I kind of like this stuff, like, for a reference point, go revisit our Gang of Youth episode. But, like, in here, it just doesn't, like, I don't see the point. I mean, I kind of can see the point here a little bit towards the end, because, like, I did like the 7th verse where she's talking about gravity being the sculptor, let the wind do her hair. Like, there it's just like, hey, let life just come to me as is. If the whole song was basically kind of structured where you are just letting life, basically, like, you were going to meet life as it was being presented to you, that would have been fine. Like, I would have very much enjoyed it on a lyrical front. And now, on like one more critique that I'm gonna throw at the song involving Linker herself is like I felt like she missed some notes when she's going up high during like the lines, so wrinkle like the river, sweeten like the dew. Like it didn't land nicely on my ears. And then on the instrumental front, the psychedelic, like, synthetic elements that you were talking about, where like, oh hey, is this Big Thief? Like, what's going on here? Like, this is kind of crazy. Like, they were like I did not like the overall instrumental package here because it just felt too murky for my liking. And now I'm all game for if a band's going to try to incorporate new elements into their music, but it just seemed like everything came out across as like half baked. Like, they didn't go hard enough in the paint, or like, they didn't flesh out enough stuff in the recording process. And that might be due to the fact that Adrian Lenker was just like, you know what? We're just in the first draft and let's go from there. But one more critique about the song, and then I'm going to say a nice thing about the song to end off my discussion about it. Like the instrumental break that you find towards the middle point of the track, I found to be pointless and doesn't do anything. It's a very definition of a nothing burger. Like, that part could have been cut out quite easily. And like, for me, my biggest issue with that instrumental break in the middle is it just seems like the band's undecided where it wants to go. It's just, oh, what are we gonna do tonight, George? Oh, like, I don't know. Let's just meander back and forth for 30 seconds and get back into the rest of the song. But one good thing I did like about the song as a whole is that beat that you were talking about, like, outside of like the psychedelic and like synthetic elements with the drums and guitar, like it's actually like when that becomes more of the focus, especially during the chorus where Linker is singing like Incomprehensible, like it lands actually quite nicely. Like, it's a pretty nice beat, but like just as an overall package though, like Incomprehensible, like I get what it's going for. Ultimately, it's not for me, but I respect it. Well, no, I don't respect it nonetheless. It's just not for me, man.
Wow. So have we already plunged into your bottom three with this track?
As crazy as it sounds, no.
Oh boy. This is gonna be one of those. This is gonna be one of we have officially entered Springsteen mode.
Oh no, ladies and gentlemen, did you hear that sound? It's Bruce Springsteen warming up for Born to Run, ladies and gentlemen.
It's counting with Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, man.
I will send you that video later. It is great.
Oh man, but anyways, yeah, I mean, well, as we barrel on through this review, man, like, I hope that I can bring a little bit more, well, I don't want to say positivity, because like that wasn't even like one of my bottom tracks, and I digress. As we barrel through here, I hope to give valid, well, and anyways, I'm gonna be done buffering here, man, and I'm just gonna move on to the next song, which is Words.
Funny enough.
So for me here, I found this to be a step up from the previous track in a lot of different ways. Like, here I found the instrumentals here to be a bit more focused. I was really enjoying what the drums and guitar were doing to drive the song. They were doing a really good job, and the extra production with the psychedelic elements actually are adding to the song instead of taking away from the complete package. Like, it seems like it's a little bit more focused here. And that crazy ass guitar solo towards the middle kind of came out of nowhere. But dude, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I very much enjoyed it. Like, it was a fun time. And let's see here, trying to pull up the lyrics, but more on the song composition front. the spot in the bridge where the instruments just bottom out, leaving Lenker just hanging there vocally, like that was a good moment on the songwriting front. It came across like aesthetically pretty pleasing to the ears, and on the lyrical front, as a complete package, like they aren't as aimless in my opinion. Like the song, I took it as to be about the struggle to find the right words in a romantic relationship, but in almost into the sense like this relationship has become subconscious, which is like, I don't want to say which is like the ultimate step of love, but it's just a different kind of degree other than trying to articulate the right words to say. And there really isn't like a lyrical highlight here, but it just seems like the lyrics are more focused and not so much stream of consciousness, and not insanely half baked as other tracks that we're gonna be coming across much later on in the review. But yeah, I'm actually walking away from words feeling like this is the big thief that I know and I love, and I see that they're adding new elements. So yeah, only other thing I gotta say about words as a whole is I did like the words in this song. I liked them so much that it landed in my top three. This track here, and words is not my favorite track. It's not my third favorite track.
Wow.
It is indeed my second favorite track off the whole album.
All right. Words cracking your top three at number two. It's fascinating you say that because you said this was a step up from Incomprehensible. I thought it was more or less, to quote one of the songs of our youth, either a slide to the left or a slide to the right. Because to me, this just felt like a sequel to Incomprehensible, with the only couple changes being on a positive note. The band did groove a little harder than it did on Incomprehensible. Still had very much that sort of psychedelic dance trance that they were going on with Incomprehensible. But I do want to shout out drummer James Krivchenia. He, to me, is the star of this song in particular because if he is just providing a very basic 1, 2, 3, 4 beat, like this song could possibly have sunk to a bottom track for me. But the way that he drums and the way that he just sort of keeps the intensity up throughout this whole song is just fantastic. And again, this feels very similar to Incomprehensible. I do agree that the words don't quite seem as bonkers as they did on Incomprehensible. I'm not 100% sure if that's for the better, though, because with Incomprehensible, it at least dared to sound like a raving, sketchy, I don't even know what to say. Where here it's like they know what they want to say, and what they know that they want to say is that they don't know what they want to say. I know that might have been a little confusing, but please keep up. Not for you, Ryan, for the listener. And yeah, like to me, it just feels like it's a sequel in name only. And the one like real critique I have of this song is that it's the one thing I left out of Incomprehensible, which is that when Lenker sings the hook on Incomprehensible, her voice sounds very rich. It sounds very out front. It's mixed well. Here it seems like she's getting buried a little bit. It feels like she's more or less in line with the music, or everything's mixed at the front. And it doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound terrible, but it does feel a little bit more of a just sort of a homogenous mix that doesn't really create anything that has layers to me. Now, that being said, I did not hate this track. This is not my bottom track. I thought this track was very solid. Probably a little closer to album track than Incomprehensible was. But if you like the first one, you'll probably like the second one because it does such a good job of maintaining that theme of trying to find the words. But again, with Incomprehensible, it was this journey to try to find the words, and words is the realization that you cannot find the words, which is kind of beautiful in a way because it sounds so very confusing.
And I think, like, for that reason, alongside the fact that the instrumentals were, like, a lot more pronounced in this track here, are the reasons why I put this in my second favorite. I put this as my second favorite track on the whole album. Like, I know that, and I do respect the critique that you had with Linker's vocals not being as pronounced in this track here. But, for me, the lyrics here aren't nearly as important within the context of Big Thief as a whole. Like, I almost value the instrumentation just as much sometimes. But, I mean, we'll see how that flushes out for the majority of the review here. Matthew, are you ready to travel to the great city of Los Angeles and discuss the next track being Los Angeles?
Yes, I am ready to discuss Los Angeles. And no, this is not a cover of X, as amazing as that would be. This Los Angeles definitely feels like a throwback to the rootsiness that I sort of fell in love with on Dragon New War Mountain. It definitely feels a lot more stripped back than the opening two tracks. It feels very basically down to the roots with guitar, bass, and drum. Like, there's still a bit of a funk element going on the rhythm section, but here it feels like things are stripped back to be a bit more clear. And perhaps this is a step closer to clarity because in the lyrics, you have not just Lenker, but the whole band writing this track, sort of going through the emotions of dealing with this relationship that's going on. She's in love, but what does it mean? And for Lenker, she's singing very strongly, very passionately, and this definitely feels like a track that could be singled out as one that was co-written, because we get a third track that very much is riding that tightrope between constructive lyric writing and stream of consciousness lyric writing. Because, again, it feels stream of consciousness, but it's executed too well to be stream of consciousness. Like, they fleshed this out and then they said, okay, no, this is what we're going with. And if Incomprehensible was the babble in trying to find words, and words was the realization that you cannot find the words to say, this falls kind of in the middle for me lyrically. Like, it feels like they're still trying to find the words, but in trying to find the words, they are just throwing words at the wall to see if they stick. And again, it doesn't sound bad. It feels a bit more fleshed out. It feels a bit more laden with imagery. Like, you can almost envision them driving down any road in Los Angeles, looking at the stuff out the window, and connecting it to what it is that they're going for. With Incomprehensible, there wasn't really a whole lot of connection because there wasn't meant to be. And words, again, was them not being able to realize what the connection was, but realizing that there was not a connection there. Here, they're trying to connect the words that she's trying to say with the love that she feels for this other person, the significant other. And to me, the music was very strong. The lyrics were kind of okay-ish. And overall, the package for me is a song that is a little bit higher than me for words, but not high enough to be in my top three and not low enough to be my bottom one.
And I'm gonna start by talking about the lyrics because you, like, a couple of things that you mentioned. I feel like I'm in agreement with you on, like, so, like, for me, Incomprehensible on the lyrical front was basically Incomprehensible, namesake there, and then words was, like, a little bit, was a bit of a step up from that lyrically, like, obviously from my dissection about the song as a whole. But with Los Angeles here, I feel like you kind of alluded to, we get that middle ground that you were alluding to. Like, for me, like, I found the lyrics here to be stream of consciousness, but, like, kind of like how I described in Incomprehensible, I don't mind stream of consciousness so much as long as if there's a point. And I feel like with Los Angeles here, there's actually a point that you can actually find. Like, and the point is, like you kind of alluded to, is about love. And like for me, the takeaway that I had with this song here, it's about love just enduring throughout the years. And like, you get lyrics about like, I'll follow you forever even without looking. And like that lyric alone is just phenomenal. Like, and also you get you call, we come together even without speaking. I can tell what you're thinking even without saying. We dream our dreams together even without lying in the same bed. Like, that is pretty top-notch lyrical writing on that front. So props to Linker on there for the lyrics right there. And like, outside of that, like, the critique that I do have about the lyrics outside of those moments. So it's just like, it just seems like in certain verses, Lanker is trying to force out words instead of just like letting them come naturally. Like, and for a reference point, I point you and the listener to verse 2, where you get lyrics that are, and I quote, "And we are kissing in a fistful of fragments falling down. I throw them up, and I watch them hit the ground like snow. Amputated dimension of the physical." And that's not even like halfway through the verse. That's about halfway through the verse, man. Like, and the way it comes across, it's just not like, so it doesn't feel natural. And again, like I understand what Lanker is going for here, but like, you get a mixed bag of lyrics here. Like, you get some good stuff, but then you also get some stuff where like, I know what you're trying to go for. Maybe it could have used like, an edit point here or there. So like, on the lyrical front, it's you get the best of both worlds, for lack of a better descriptor there. But on the instrumental front, like the overall package kind of just feels like a campfire jam session here. Like, I very much enjoyed what was going on there. And like you alluded to, this seems like Big Thief of old, where like, it's just like, hey, we're back into that rootsy, like, Americana kind of feel. And like, yeah, just the overall package of the song sounds nice to the ears. Like, the guitars and the drums are once again doing a nice job providing a solid foundation for Linker to deliver some decent vocals. Like, I was very much enjoying what's going on there. And they're not even really doing anything to rewrite the will. Like, it just sounds nice to the ears. And like, that's, for better or for worse, that's the best way to describe like effective like indie rock and indie folk rock as a whole. And the only other note I have about Los Angeles is the outro. I found to be nice because you just get the band jamming with the vocalizations of the backing vocals, and the band was allowed to breathe, while the song was exiting. So like, yeah, I'm walking away from Los Angeles just kind of feeling like you get some good stuff, but you also get kind of some bad stuff too. So that bad stuff kind of did like, hold the track back from being a top track for me. But yeah, it could have been a top track for me, man, honestly.
Yeah, a couple of things piggybacking off of what you said before we kick it on over to All Night, All Day. You mentioned how, again, a lot of the stream of consciousness lyrics felt a little forced, and that's kind of the criticism I have of it, is that, again, I feel like what Lanker was trying to do was basically the same thing as Incomprehensible, except she had a focal point to go from, which is, I love this person. And I think she tried to mesh the focal point of I love this person almost as an excuse to be like, I can't find the words to say I love you, so I'm just going to come up with more random BS. Which, again, I get what she was trying to go for, but didn't quite land very, like, super well to me. Again, I don't hate this track. This track's solid, but it did feel a little confusing. And, yeah, I think the music is the strongest point, and I did notice quite a few times that a lot of the tracks do breathe, which I've gotten so used to it, like, in my own palette that I'm just kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that was a Ryan-coded thing. But yes, it is very much a Ryan-coded thing for tracks to breathe. But that being said, I will throw it on over to you for track 4 off of Double Infinity, and that is All Night, All Day.
Inspired by Lionel Richie, man. But yeah, with all day, all night, all day. This song here kind of goes back to the opening, the opening track in terms of gears and a sonic palette. And for those of you who have been paying attention to the review here so far, that's not a good thing for me. So the instrumentals here, like they're muted and murky, and it just doesn't land well, and like um it just everything just kind of ends up sounding like lost and just pretty directionless, which considering like the lyrical front here is supposed to be this is supposed to be kind of a sexy song, like that. I don't know, that almost insults anybody who's tried to write a sexy song, in my opinion. But the reasons why I kind of think like this is supposed to be like a sexy song is like the lyrics that you get. One I want to highlight is "God is good, or whatever made the mouth to drink the treasure." That is some horny lyric writing right there. But like the instrumental backing from it is just not there. It's just like very muted, very murky. It's not clear, precise, or it's not even like brought up on the level front. Vocally though, from Linker, she's doing a good job, decently, and I do like the moments where the backing vocals come in during the chorus. I thought that was a nice touch. And also, one thing on the instrumental front that I did like was when you get those piano flourishes peeking out through the murky instrumentation. I thought that was a very nice touch, and I'm always a fan of that on the instrumental front, where you get like random fills in on the instrumental front, where you get like a nice added like spice to it. But yeah, like I said, as a complete package, again, I'm not being hooked into this song. It's very much, we're going back to the gear of Incomprehensible, but because of the fact that this song is supposed to be like a sexy song, due to the lyrical nature, I'm a little taken back by the song as a whole. So much so that, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, we've arrived into bottom track territory here with All Night, All Day landing at my third least favorite track off the whole album.
It's funny that you would make that announcement to, all the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls that are listening, because I didn't think they'd be able to hear that over the sounds of the bells in the distance declaring that it is once again fight o'clock. Because let me tell you, Mr. Kearns, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my brain, but to me, I wouldn't call this necessarily a sexy song per se. Like, this is not Justin Timberlake or, something like Beyonce's Rocket, which is probably the best, sexy sex song of the last, 20 years. But to me, this is more of a... How do I say this? This feels more like a spiritual effervescence of lyric writing in what Adrian Lenker's going for. And to me, the opening lines, hearing what they are, I never do this listening to albums for the sake of the show, but I literally had to go back and be did she actually say that? Are those the opening lines that she went with? Just from there on, it's just oh, so this is what we're doing. And to me, the clarity of those lines and the clarity of what she's going for in this song felt like a bit of a relief after the seemingly unfocused, although intentionally unfocused, lyrical nature of the first 3 tracks. Here, you know what Lenker's trying to say. She's saying that she is horny. She is going for Sabrina Carpenter's crown and scepter. She is just full on, not even hiding it. And the way that she talks about it like you mentioned with the lyric of God is good or whatever made the mouth drink the treasure, and lines such as, drink sugar, drink poison, sometimes they taste the same. Like, there's only one thing on her mind. And to me, the clarity of it really helped this track be very strong to me. And as far as the instrumental is concerned, I will say it's not the best instrumental performance or the most noteworthy instrumental performance on the track, but to me, it feels like it's more of a stripped down version of what we heard on Los Angeles. It's just more sort of a rootsy stomp. To me, it felt like the drums were doing what they were supposed to do, the guitars were doing what they were supposed to do, and and here it feels like the idea was to just keep things in tempo to let not just Lanker's voice but the harmony vocals stand out, which was a very good move because her singing is very strong, her words are very clear, and the harmonies are very, very nice. And the song as a whole, to me, is like the only thing at this point that Lanker is confused about is whether this relationship, this sort of, sexual relationship that she's in, is equal to love. But she knows that in this moment, it doesn't matter. Love is just a word, but this is the best. This is the best that she can get, from a spiritual, physical, mental level. So I thought that was very strong. I thought it was very passionate. And unlike you, I do not have this as my bottom song. In fact, I have it as a top song. And in fact, I has it the top song on this album. I got All Night, All Day, All Night, All Day on my playlist.
Oh, man. Lionel Richie would be proud of you, man. But, agree to disagree, man. Like, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, like, your points are your points. My points are my points. The bell has rung. 5 o'clock city has ended. And I'm curious because, like, as I noted, that was my third least favorite song. As the temperature starts to turn up, like as Spicy Ryan starts to get a little bit more spicy, are we going to enter into 5 o'clock city once more? I don't know. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
But yeah, the way that we're going to find out is by progressing through this review, and the next progression has us going into the title track off the whole album, closing side A of the review off. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Yes, Double Infinity, the closer to side A. And to me, this track feels like a continuation of the thought process that Lanker's had throughout this whole record. Because you start with not, being unable to say words comprehensively, realizing you're not able to say anything comprehensively, trying to pinpoint something that make you think comprehensively, throwing it all away to be like, no, this is what I want, I don't care how explicit it is, and then sort of building off from that. Because to me, All Night, All Day was the most focused song, and here Double Infinity bounces off that because you get those opening lines of troubled mind, let me rest, my heart is full, my life is blessed, and still you put me to the test. So for as, ethereal and vivacious as the lovemaking was on All Night, All Day, there's still that lingering doubt in Lanker's mind of whether this is love, whether this is a good thing for her, and she just explores that throughout this song, to the point where her vocal seems somewhat pleading, has a bit of a hope to it, but kind of fearful. Like, have you ever seen someone who is like trying to be happy even though they're like filled with doubt and anxiety, and they sort of do that? No, it's fine. It's fine. Like it's, everything's good. I like you could they're saying that they're happy and they're fine, but you can clearly tell that they're not. That something is eating at them. To me, that is the vocal that Lanker is delivering on this track, and I think it's very, very effective. Musically, the groove just feels very 90s alt for some reason to me. Like, it feels like this is something you could, like, plop on an alternative station in the 90s, it would have fit right in. And it does sound good because I thought the guitar work on this track from both Lanker and Buck Meek were both very, very powerful. It definitely reminded me of a sonic palette we heard last week when discussing Radiohead, particularly tracks like High and Dry, where you get guitars on top of guitars, and even though some of those guitars are acoustic, it creates a layered backing that really propels the sound that is going for. So yeah, I thought that this track was definitely a lyrical progression and a storytelling progression for the album. I didn't quite like it though as much as All Night All Day though, because to me the anxiety and the uneasiness didn't feel very. Again, it's a strong performance, but didn't like stand out to me enough to be a top track for me. But it's not my bottom track either. I thought this track was solidly good.
And for me, like, a couple of things that you mentioned about the track, I'll, like, address coming right out of the gate, like, and I'm going to address about the anxiety that you find throughout the track. And for me, like, this is anxiety I've found to be more about just the grind of life and just how, like, everything is just, like, it's hard. It's hard, like, just existing in modern day's life. Like, I like lyrics that I did like within the track as a whole. The section where she's talking about trees being on fire, the rivers flood, and all the banks are soaked in blood. A mirror shaking, a portrait draws a shadow. The lyrics about butterflies, summer breeze, wildflowers sway with ease. And talk about what's lost and what lies waiting. Like, I again, the track is basically kind of littered with lyrical examples of just how, like, in life we kind of get this like double like battle that we're basically kind of struggling with. Like, we get some good stuff, but we also get like some moments where we feel lost and incomplete, and that's basically the meaning about the whole album. And like I like that, and again, I do like stream of consciousness lyrics when they have a meaning, and I feel like this is a good balance of like having a meaning and being stream of consciousness, but not forcing words out. So like I did enjoy that factor about the track as a whole. I will critique Linker though in her vocal delivery. She does get a little bit pitchy throughout the track, which does take away from the enjoyment factor of the track, but not so much that we're entering into bottom track territory, to be honest with you. And like the overall structure of the song, though, it's not bad. Like, like you kind of alluded to, like the instrumentals are basically kind of like your typical like 90s all rock music here. Like everything's basically simple, and like you get that down to earth feelings, and like basically with that you get a song that's basically meant to showcase the vocals of Lanker and her lyrics, which like outside of the pitchiness in certain instances, like are as a complete package, it's not bad. Like it's overall like kind of like a mixed bag of a track here, but like in terms of tracks, though, that aren't in a bottom or top track contention for me, like this is probably towards like the upper crop of the middle, if I can, like if that's a good descriptor for you. I did enjoy what was going on with Double Infinity as a concept. It just if Linker wasn't as pitchy in certain circumstances, this could have been a top track though, honestly.
That's fair, and although I do think it's kind of funny that you mentioned this is like in the upper middle section of not your top three or your bottom three, because there's only 9 tracks on this album, so the math is like, oh, this could be a 4 or 5, so that is kind of funny to hear. But I guess agree to disagree on Lanker's vocal performance. It didn't really stand out to me, but I didn't really catch the pitchiness of it either. But then again, I may have a little bit more of a leniency when it comes to vocals and their pitch or timbre. Again, if you want to find out our real thoughts about that, go back to our aforementioned Bruce Springsteen episode where we talk a lot about vocal delivery and our disagreements with that.
Oh yeah, man, and also like another review I would like to reference though in terms of like an example, like our opinion, how our opinions kind of differentiate in terms of vocals. The Ricky Lee Jones episode, like apparently I had a very hot take in that episode. But yeah, those episodes are those episodes. Those were good times. But Matthew, before we journey into the back half of this review with No Fear, that being the track title, and the fact that we're not afraid what the back half is going to hold. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't paid attention to the scorecard that you've been filling out, we have we're going to have some fun here with the last 4 tracks here.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, before we do that, Matthew, I have a question for you.
For me? Oh, well, that is very, very kind of you. What would that question be?
If the dear listener out there is very much enjoying what we're bringing to their earbuds in this episode here, where it seems like we're having a spirited debate about what Big Thief is bringing to the table with the album Double Infinity, and they want to help, us, they want to give us a motivation to keep on keeping on with our podcasting journey here as a whole, what are some ways that they can help support us? And in addition to that, help connect with us on other platforms that are not a audio medium.
Well, we'll start with the audio mediums, which is if you like listening to us, you could find us on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. If you want to keep on listening to this here on Hey, Listen to This. We are on Pocket Cast. We are on Apple Music. We are on Spotify. We're wherever you can find your podcast of choice. Also, we have our episodes uploaded every week to YouTube. So if you like to either have videos on the back or you have YouTube Music, whichever way you want to go about that, that is how you can find us as well. We upload our episodes in video format every week as well. And for those who are on those sites listening to us and liking what they hear, let us know. Give us that 5-star rating or 4.5 if you're on a tight budget. Like, comment, and subscribe if you are on YouTube, and do whatever it does, as Ryan says, to please the algorithmic gods as best you can. Speaking of algorithms, if you like what you hear and you want to share it with somebody, but you're not sure who that somebody might be, fear not. We are on social media, and you could share our content there. We are on Facebook. We are on Threads. We are on Instagram. We are on Blue Sky. And if you are looking for us there, the username to look for is ttheylisten. That is the letter T, another letter T, the word hey, and the word listen. And that is how you can find us on social media. And speaking of ttheylisten, if you want to reach out to us directly, but you do not know us directly, we have an email address that you can reach us at, which is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. If you want to give a more detailed and personal feedback, whether it's something positive, something negative, or perhaps recommendation for future content or a future episode, because we have done requests in the past and we would love to do them again. So again, ttheylisten@gmail.com is how you can reach out to us directly. And as always, for those of you who have reached out to us, listened to us, shared our content throughout these first 100 and I believe we're at number 107 now for full episodes, not counting discography drafts. Again, thank you. Again, we are not part of any major podcast network. We're not part of any entertainment network. We're not sponsored by any major brands. We're just two dudes who like talking about music and enjoying sharing the conversation with you. And Ryan, as always, I thank you for being a wonderful co-host and helper throughout this entire ride that we've been on, man.
Thank you, man. And, the compliment goes right back to you. Like, I feel like, again, I kind of, alluded to the fact, the listeners, if they want to help us be motivated to keep on keeping on with our adventures here week in, week out. Honestly, like, no disrespect to the listeners, like, I find the most joy from the fact that, like, you and I get to talk about music week in, week out, and like the journeys, the rabbit holes that we've gone down throughout our over 100 plus full length reviews here so far have been, like, crazy. And, like, there's been a lot of bands I discovered, like, I have an immense love for, and also some bands that I never knew existed before, and, like, other avenues that I never exposed myself to before. So that's the point of this project that we're taking upon ourselves to, like, explore. And yeah, without any further ado, I suppose that we continue on with the current project in this episode. And in this episode, we are talking about Double Infinity by Big Thief. And we are going to be starting the back half of the review with No Fear in terms of mindset, and also the track No Fear. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Floor is mine. All right, I will take the floor on this one. And for this track, a bit of an ominous start to side B, which is a track that, for all of the unfocusedness or intentional throwing words at the wall that we talked about on a lot of the opening tracks to this album, here you get a very focused set of lyrics, but a very short set of lyrics, because I want to say there's only about 8, maybe 12 lines throughout this whole song, but they are repeated ad nauseum over and over and over. And basically what Lakers try to say in these words is that, hey, whatever comes our way, whether it be, the breakup or marriage or just simply living out the rest of our lives, drinking that treasure, I'm not going to be afraid of it. And because of you, I am not afraid. And I think the line that sums that up is the line, "There is no face that isn't in your face." Kind of an allusion to something you would hear from, like, the Stylistics back in 1972. You are everything and everything is you. You are my everything, and everything that I see has some part of you in it because you are part of everything in my life. And I wrote that it could be a reference to the significant other that's probably featured, but who are we kidding? That's exactly what it's about. And to me, what makes this song work is the fact that you get that repetitive mantra of lyrics, that repetitive nature of Laker trying to tell herself and tell the world that this is the way. And the band matches her pretty much at every single step, because this is more of a jam session track by the band, which I think works very, very well, because even though you have this repetitive nature, the band is not being super repetitive, and the groove that they are relying on is very, very strong. I want to shout out the bassist on this track, who is not, or at the very least was not a official member of the band when this was recorded, but is now on the band for the live tour that they're doing for this album. Joshua Crumbly, he does a hell of a job with that bass track throughout this entire thing, and really is the engine that keeps the pace going throughout all 6+ minutes, close to 7 of this track, because it is a rather long song. And it just feels very mantra-y. It feels very, repeat this and until it is immersed within. And I thought it was very effective. It kind of reminded me of a Rolling Stones track from 1981 entitled Slave, which in itself was basically a jam session track. And while I probably would appreciate the instrumentals on that one a tiny bit more because of the work of Charlie Watts and Sonny Rollins, who guest stars on that track on saxophone, with this track you get more of a meaning behind it. It's mean to say, listen, there is no fear going forward. Whatever will be, and nothing can stop me. And nothing stopped this track until the very end, where You get the backward tape effects that pretty much affect everything except for Lanker's vocals, which is feels more like of a hey, all right, let's just cut this off. Let's get on to the next track type of vibe, which I kind of appreciated that, and I appreciate this track so much so that we have entered into top 3 territory once again with No Fear. I have this track in at number 3.
And for me, a couple of things I want to address coming right out of the gate are a couple of things that you talked about. First of all, that bass line, I agree with you. Like, it is pretty good. It is essentially the centerpiece of the song. Like, if you just zoom in and focus in on that bass line, it is hypnotic and it is just really good. It's very meaty, very, very much like, a foundation that you can build a song out of. And outside of that on the instrumental front, like, I did enjoy what the drums were doing to just keep inside the pocket. Like, it's not doing anything fancy, not doing anything over the top. It just is keeping everything grounded, and alongside the bass they're creating like a very nice like foundation for like the rest of the ensemble to like flush out the song. And on the instrumental front as well, I'm going to give a shout out to the guitar work here. Like, I found it to be excellent. Like, the delayed reverb pedals, like, effects, they worked well within the context of the song. But, ladies and gentlemen, do you hear that sound?
Oh, here we go.
We have once again entered into Fight O'Clock City here on Hey Listen to This.
Oh, boy.
And, well, why is the song in my bottom tracks here? Well, let me explain. And with just talking about like just how the lyrics come across right out of the gate. And like you alluded to the fact that they basically repeat the same X amount of bars throughout the whole song. And for me, like, it's weird. Like, I feel like I should like this kind of song. And one of the songs I can think of right off the top of my brain is one of the tracks that we discussed in the Stooges review that we did, and how that was basically like this song. But like for me, like, I didn't like the overall like package that was being delivered here on the lyrical front. I actually kind of felt the lyrics to be a little convoluted and up their own ass. And like what the one bar that kind of got me is there is nowhere, no table, no chair, no country. I'm like, okay, James Hetfield is just seeing that that bar, and it's just like, well, I am the table. I am here. But anyways, I digress. Jokes aside, like I get like what they could be kind of going for. Like a table is something that you use to present something. No chair is like something that you rest on. No countries where you find your identity. But it's just, I don't know. It just kind of comes across like a little convoluted. And is that the only reason why this song is in my bottom 3? No, the main reason why this song is in my bottom 3 is for the fact that you get a section where you get a backing vocal with a reverb effect trying to echo certain lines in the song. And for me, that basically almost made the track unlistenable at points because like everything just becomes lost and like basically irritating to the point that it almost kind of reminded me of like the Jelly Roll review that we did with his duet with MGK, as sacrilegious as it does sound, because like that basically was a huge turn off for me. Everything was basically unclear, unconcise, and it was not put together well for me. So yeah, now the only thing that I have to settle up is this my least favorite track or my second least favorite track? Because my third least favorite track in All Night All Day has already been spoken for. ladies and gentlemen, No Fear is indeed my second least favorite track off the whole album.
Oh, not the bottom. Not the bottom. All right. Um, it's funny. I didn't pick up on that. If I did find that reverb part that you were talking about, it didn't affect me as much because I think I was a little too lost in the groove to notice anything insignificant. Because I think about like 3 minutes in, I realized, okay, this track is what it is, and I'm along for the ride. Take me where you want to go. And again, until the very end, it does that. It does it well. And as far as the lyrics being up their own ass, I don't completely disagree, but at the same time, I wasn't as turned off by them because I feel like with lyrics like, no chair, no country, no table, again, it feels like description for the sake of description, but it feels again a bit more rooted in a worldview that was established on All Night All Day and Double Infinity. I'll even throw a little bit of Los Angeles in there too. That is a stronger base for the lyrics like this to get away with. But I understand where you're coming from with that.
And that's perfectly fair. Like, I feel like with the amount of disagreements that we've had here so far, one, especially with No Fear here, like, again, like, I can't stress enough. I feel like I should like the song, but I don't. But I also appreciate the fact, like, you've presented the other side of the coin with it. So now I'm very interested to see, though, because we only have 3 tracks here remaining in the LP. And we've been 2 for 2 for Fight O'Clock City. Are we going to make it 3 for 3? I mean, we'll see. Because, like, you've yet to reveal, I think, your second favorite song, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
And your bottom track. And for me, I'm going to have a lot of fun here with the last 3 here because I'm going to be running a gambit here for better or for worse because I've yet to reveal my number 1 and my number 3 favorite tracks, and I've also yet to reveal the flaming turd that is my bottom track here. So, but yeah, it's going to be fun, man.
It is going to be fun. So all I have to say is, that's my grandma! Because the next track on Double Infinity is the track entitled Grandmother. Ryan, the floor is yours.
And grandmother here is featuring ambient musician Laraaji. I mean, I might be mispronouncing that name, but I apologize. I'm just a simple white guy from Pittsburgh. But yeah, fleshing out the song as a complete package, though. The instrumentals here, I'm going to start with. And once again, we get into murky territory. But I actually found that there was some good stuff happening here. Like, one thing I do want to highlight, though, and I think this is what Raja was bringing to the table, like, you get those kind of, like, laser effects in the song. I felt like that was a nice touch. And also, the guitar's in a pretty interesting line. And you also get very interesting pops of auxiliary percussion, which I could not identify. And possibly, if I did some diving, I might have been able to like do some research in terms of what those like auxiliary percussion elements were. But I did enjoy what was being brought to the table, nonetheless. The vocalizations from Laraaji, though, are a treat for me, man. It adds like a very nice element to the whole song. And also the instrumental break that brings him to the forefront is a very good section. I very much enjoyed what was happening there. So, instrumental front, very solid. On the lyrical front, it's pretty much okay. I do appreciate the messaging of turning love and pain into rock and roll. And also that concept of like turning things into rock and roll is found in the chorus, and the chorus itself is pretty good. And I'm gonna be honest with you, after properly like taking a look at the whole album, it is the best chorus off the whole album. And the only thing I got to note about Grandmother before I reveal how this landed in my top 3, because obviously not my least favorite track, but is a little note that Buck had to say about this on Instagram. Grandmother is the first song the three of us have written together from scratch, a testament of what rock and roll means to us. Beyond genre, the music that absorbs it all. This recording features Laraaji vocalizing spontaneously, much to our surprise. So, like, again, this is trying to encapsulate the feelings of, like, how rock and roll music just moves everybody. And it lands pretty effectively on my ears. And honestly, I'm going to switch up my ranking here because upon further listening, I'm going to put this as my top track on the whole album.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, little last minute switcheroo. Or at least what you were insinuating is a last minute switcheroo. I respect that. I respect that. So for me, Grandmother, I agree with a lot of the things you said. Like, it is a full band effort throughout this track. I mean, I wasn't blown away by the instrumental performances by the band. Like, they sound fine. I thought the drummer sounded good. I thought the guitar sounded good. But to me, like you pointed out, the vocals are the treat on this track, because when you get to this chorus where the band is saying, we're going to turn it all into rock and roll, and you get that call response with Laraaji, I thought that was really, really nice, because it very much created a more thoughtful version of the jam session that we got on the likes of No Fear. Lyrically, however, I did think it was a little ominous and somewhat reminiscent of Los Angeles lyrically, because you get these lyrics like, kissing in the car outside the stadium and wondering about a future with no bar, no car, no stadium. And this is Lenker and the band perhaps trying to cope with the possible loss of something. What is the loss of? Could it be of the lover? Could it be of grandma? Could it be of Los Angeles? It's not clear, and that's okay. Because it all comes back to that chorus where she says, and the whole band says, we're going to turn it all into rock and roll. So they are converting their grief and their anxiety and their confusion about the future into what is rock and roll now, which I think is very strong. And not only that, the other key phrase of the song that I pointed out was, I saw love through the pain. Like, again, that is, to me, the central point of this song. So this track came very, very close to being in a top track territory. This is probably a solid 4, at the very worst 5 for me, but not in my top 3, and it is also not my bottom track either. So the bells of Fight O'Clock do not ring this time around.
Fair enough, man. All right, so we have 2 tracks remaining. And just to recap on my scorecard here, I have the flaming turd to reveal, and that being my least favorite track, and my third favorite track now, because I switched her up. And Matthew, what do you have left on your scorecard? If you want to tell the dear listener.
I have my second favorite track and my bottom track as well. So we both have our flaming turds ready to discuss and dissect.
Oh man, so we have a possibility going 4 for 4 for Fight O'Clock City here on Hey Listen to This. I mean, let's find out, man. So I'm gonna flip the floor over to you to discuss the penultimate track on Double Infinity, and that track is indeed Happy With You.
Yes, Happy With You, the penultimate track here on Double Infinity. And the lyrics to Happy With You are as follows. I'm happy with you. Happy with you. Happy with you. Why do I need to explain myself? Poison shame. Poison shame. Poison shame. And If you're looking for more words, I'm here to tell you that there aren't any. There are no more words than that. And the amount of times I repeated, I'm happy with you, why do I need to explain myself, and poison shame, is far fewer than it is on this track. And I get what Lanker was going for here. I really do. She's trying to say with this song, listen, I'm happy with this person. I shouldn't have to explain myself to anybody. And I know you're coming out here with this poison shame, which I'm going to assume is a reference to the fact that, oh, she's in this relationship with this, other person, and it's, not a heterosexual relationship, and shame, it's drinking the poison, shame. I get that. And I will give the band credit for at least breaking through the monotony by building the song instrumentally, because as the chorus or whatever you want to call it gets repeated, it does feel like the band is layering their sound a bit more time and time again. So I do get that the instrumental performance is pretty solid, but if I'm going to be completely honest, she asks why does she need to explain herself. She doesn't have to, but artistically I prefer when she does explain herself, because this was repetitive, way too hard on the button, way too much. I get it. Now stop it. So if that didn't explain it for you, I will say it as clear as I can. Happy With You is easily my bottom track off of Double Infinity.
And for me, with Happy With You, I'm going to start talking about the instrumentals here. I was very much enjoying what was going on here in the instrumental front. Like, very much enjoying that bass line. Shout out to the bassists throughout this album. Like, apparently they're bringing the heat in certain songs here. And also the accompanying percussion elements of the song. I thought that was like very nice. And what I mean by percussion elements, like you get the drums, but you also get like some other like auxiliary percussion. Like I thought that was very nice. And also the guitar, like doing a solid job accompanying everything with those bright chords. And the vocals from Adrian Lenker as a complete package, like they're pretty solid. But I have to agree with Matthew. I cannot stress how much I hate this song, because I know I have criticized like in the earlier tracks for being like underdeveloped, half baked, and basically kind of lost in sauce and basically up their own ass. Like I'm almost insulted hearing this song, because I get it, being a free spirit, letting everything just flow through you naturally. But it is lazy writing just to have the lyrics being 98% of them being in fact happy with you, poison shame. Like that is a huge issue, man. Like you could have added so much more to this track, and it could have honestly been a top track for me. I'm gonna be honest with you, due to the instrumental front. But like the fact that she just ran with "Happy with You" for like and "Poison Shame" for everything, it is a huge issue, and it's I don't want to say it's an insult to anybody who has ears, but like it's just not for me. And if this one is for you, dear listener, I would like you to explain why. Because different strokes for different folks. But I think both me and Matt are definitely in agreement that this is basically lazy songwriting to a T. And easily our least favorite track off the whole record.
I am glad that we are in agreement on this one, because I would have been shocked and quite honestly surprised if you had considered this song to be the best over any of the other tracks that we talked about. That being said, I feel like there is one way this song could have been saved without changing anything, at least from the lyrical or the musical front. I think this track might have been salvaged if it was the opening track on this album. Because if no, you don't think so?
Nope. I don't care if it's the opening track, closing track, middle track. Again, like flush out your reasoning. I apologize for interrupting you. That was rude of me. But flush out your reasoning. But I'm a solid nope. This song has no redeeming factors outside of that.
No, I get it, but I think what could have made the song work as an opening track is the fact that it's so repetitive and ambiguous. Like at this point in the record, we've heard again songs like, again, me personally, All Night All Day, Grandmother, even I'll throw No Fear in there, where the conscience of Adrienne Lenker and what she's trying to say and what the band is trying to say lyrically is out there. And for that to have taken place before this song, and for this song just to go like happy with you, it does come across a little insulting. I will give you that. But if you put this at the beginning of the record, where we don't know what the hell any of this means, it all of a sudden becomes a bit more inquisitive, almost like an overture. Like, who is she happy with? What is this poison shame? Why does she need to explain herself? Or doesn't need to explain herself, I should say. So it does add a little bit of dubiousness and mystery to it that I think maybe could have been fleshed out over the course of the remainder of the record in the order that it went in. But the problem is if you did that, and this is where I think I kind of go back to your side, is that if you put this in front of Incomprehensible and Words, you might have people tuning out of the record. Like, you might have people just shutting the damn thing off and be like, I'm sorry, no. Clearly, they have lost their way. So, yeah, I hate to say this because, again, I think this band is very, very good, and I think there's a lot of very good stuff on this album, but, man, this is not only my least favorite song on this album, this is my least favorite Big Thief song I've encountered so far. Like, whoa.
Oh, man. So, yeah, I mean... yeah, I'm definitely not ever listening to this song again. I was gonna test out your theory, maybe months down the road, and reorganize the album within the context of a playthrough and have this song be the first one. But no, I don't want to torture myself for the sake of curiosity. So with that being said, I am gonna just shovel on into the closing track here with "How Could I Have Known." And with this track here, we kind of just basically go back to Big Thief as a whole. The murky instrumentation that I've criticized throughout the LP here so far, the psychedelic synthetic elements are very much dialed back, almost to a dull roar. And I like that a lot. The instruments are clear as can be, and everything just flows so nicely. Everything just it flows into a nice groove throughout the song. And there's moments in the song itself where the band does slow down at certain phrases to match the vocals to highlight certain passages. And I thought those moments are so tight, and they land so nice on my ears. It's almost like a Ryan Kearns musical kink right there. But yeah. Outside of that, we get vocals basically from everyone, from my knowledge, and everything sounds just nicely to the ear. It's it's not overpowering where you get layers and layers of harmonious vocals that are just trying to go over the top. It just seems with the community aspect of it, it's very nice. I very much like what's being brought to the table here. The instrumental break that you find here on the track was solid. Nothing really special, but it's pretty decent. It grooves pretty nicely. And the only thing I got mentioned about the song as a whole is just the song lyrically. The way I took it was looking back at a love through the lens of a breakup. And with that, the lyric about walking to the Eiffel Tower and standing out in the rain, and how it turned out to be some empty power that she could not explain. The idea of going to the Eiffel Tower, where it's supposed to be this very nice romantic spot, and standing out in the rain where life is delivering some hard moments, and that Eiffel Tower, like having some empty power, like empty power of love that she couldn't explain. Like I felt like it'd be very clever lyric writing within the context of looking back at a love through the lens of a breakup. Yeah, I thought that was very good. So with that and the instrumental palette being like pretty nice, I like ladies and gentlemen, completing out the scorecard here for Ryan Jamalafu Kearns. I have How Could I've Known as my third favorite track off the record. It's a nice way to close off the record.
It really is. And for those of you keeping score on my end, this completes my top three. I have this in at number 2. And a lot of the reasons that Ryan mentioned, I will echo. The vocals on this track are beautiful. Like, it almost feels like they're singing like a country type of hymn almost. Like they're, playing at a campfire, but it's outside of like a wooden church. There's this thing that they did a couple times on Dragon, New War Mountain, I Believe in You, particularly on No Reason, Certainty. I'll throw Wake Me Up to Drive in there as well, where Adrienne being the lead, she doesn't have the highest register. She sings the low part, but out front. And the background vocals are more of a descant that are the higher parts of the harmony. It creates this very gothic type of effect that I really, really, really like, and you get it on this track, and it works so well. I also like how the band sounds, particularly Krivchenko on the drums. Like, he is keeping time, but there are elements where he is just putting in fills and random spots that make it feel very jammy, and the music, in a sense, almost feels very stream of consciousness for a change, which is a nice little twist on what we've gotten so far. And I'm glad that this song has lyrics. The lyrics are nice. Lyrics are nice to have. And to me, the lyrics, you did a very good job, Ryan, of dissecting how this feels to be the back end of this whole relationship after the breakup, and looking back on it and realizing, at these moments in time when we were in love, how could we have known that the dark times were coming? And the uneasiness of it very much reminds me, once again, of Los Angeles, as far as sort of the sightseeing mixed with the melancholy of the breakup. Sort of an inverse, if you think, where if Los Angeles is her realizing all these things around her mean that she's in love, now all these things that she's experienced means it's time to move on. So lyrically, it's very good. Musically, it's really, really, really good. And yeah, it is a nice warm bowl of soup to end this review on. Again, How Could I Have Known firmly in my top 3 at number 2.
And I can absolutely respect it. And like I shout out to you for bringing back the warm bowl of soup trope that we've had throughout this whole project of ours. So yeah, I mean, yeah, all I gotta say about this record, man. We've had 9 tracks up, and 9 tracks have been smacked down. Scorecards have been completely filled out. There's only one thing left to say about this review as a whole.
We did it, man.
We did indeed do it, man. We experienced double infinity, and as a result, we became big thieves. As a result,
I like that. That's probably your smoothest pun following the We Did It we've had in quite some time. I give you full marks for that. I'll go first with my thoughts on Double Infinity. And this record's interesting, man. Like, it feels like, for those who have not experienced Big Thief before and wondered what they're in for, they're in for a bit of an adventure, because you start with these songs that are about and also communicate the lack of words, slowly building into a thought realization of what you're trying to say and why you're trying to say it, with the relationship aspect of Linker as the main character, and slowly delving into thoughts of love, thoughts of confusion of whether this love's going to last, whether it is actually love, what loss means in a giant context, and ultimately settling for the reality of what is. It almost feels like, and this is going to be a weird comparison, but it almost feels like the musical version of Poor Things, where it starts with like this infantile state of trying to realize who the hell you even are and what the hell you even say, to, firm realizations that may not last, to realizations about what didn't last being what's lasting. And I'm not trying to spoil Poor Things. I don't think I could possibly do that. That movie is very weird. But back to Big Thief. Throughout the album, I thought Lanker's performances on vocals were very, very good, even when she is repeating stuff ad nauseum, which sunk parts of the album for me. The band, I think, sounds great throughout. You get the guitar sounding great, whether it's Buck Meek on bass or Buck Meek on guitar, Josh Crumbly on bass, and James Krivchenia on drums. At any point, them plus Langer on guitar, plus the vocalizations and percussion of Laraaji, make this album just flow so solidly throughout. Now, that being said, is this necessarily where I'm going to go to listen to the best of Big Thief? Probably not, because while there are great tracks on here like All Night All Day and How Could I Have Known that really stand out, there are other tracks like Words and the aforementioned Happy With You that I'm just as well not necessarily hearing again outside the context of this album, and maybe even within the context of it with Happy With You. But I thought this album was really solid. I did like it quite a bit. I am going to give Double Infinity by Big Thief a solid 8 out of 10.
And for me, it's been an interesting experience diving into Double Infinity by Big Thief, because I knew whenever it was brought to when it was made known at the end of last week's review that we were going to be covering this album, I knew that I wasn't a fan of the album as a whole. Upon my first couple listens, I didn't find it, in fact, to be one of the most weak album, the most weak album out of Big Thief's catalog. And after doing the review, I agree. You get moments of instrumental clarity and instrumental ascension that they were trying to go with throughout this whole record, with incorporating these psychedelic synthetic elements and grandmother, and also authentic instrumentation you kind of find in How Could I Have Known, and also Words is good in concept, and I do appreciate what was going on in there. But honestly, if I had to be honest with you, it's hard for me to want to revisit this album outside of my top tracks. Happy With You, I'm not happy with that song. It's Poison Shame indeed. And also a lot of the tracks are basically half-baked, underdeveloped, and at moments unlistenable, in No Fear. And it's a shame because Big Thief is a band that could probably have easily pulled off authentic instrumentation and incorporating that with psychedelic elements that they were trying to do, and also the lyrical front that Matt was trying to allude to. I feel like they could have flushed that out a little bit more and not been so stream of consciousness, and a little bit more authentic and a little bit more cohesive. But yeah, I mean, without any further ado, in terms of an overall rating, I'm walking away from Double Infinity kind of mixed, because I don't know what to really give it in terms of a proper rating, because at moments it is competent but uninspired, and it could be background music. But on the other end, it's not actively bad, but it doesn't offer much reason to revisit. and it does have like a lot of good ideas, but they're not fully realized. So I'm gonna go in between like the ratings that I've kind of been pinballing back and forth in terms of giving this album here, Double Infinity by Big Thief, a 4.5 out of 10.
Wow. Wow, I don't know about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. You are entitled to your opinion, and I do respect your opinion. I do not see a world in this way that this album is worse than Pearl Jam. I don't. But that's again your opinion. You have the right to it. And for the sake of okay, hold on. This is going to be an interesting one. Okay, no, it's not. I can math. So your 4.5 and my 8 combine for a 12.5. You cut that in half, and what we get is an album average for Double Infinity of 6.25 out of 10. Because
Math.
math works, everybody doesn't discriminate, it doesn't hate. It can be a little harsh sometimes, but that's only if you put meanings behind the numbers. But it is math, and math works. Always, numbers never lie. So, I'm not even going to pretend to overthink about my next choice for recommendation based off of Double Infinity. Just go back one album. Listen to Dragon New War Mountain, I Believe in You. It is the album that even got me into Big Thief. It's got so many good songs on it. It is a wonderful package front to back. Go listen to that album. I'm not going to make it complicated.
And for me, I could have did the album that you recommended as well, but I decided to go back to the start in terms of really recommend the first album from Big Thief, released in 2016, called Masterpiece. And I actually revisited that album today for the first time in a long time, just to see if I actually did enjoy Big Thief as a collective. And it turns out I do. It's just this album, it was a stinker for me. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like all bands, all artists are allowed one stinker of an album, if I had to be honest with you. But yeah, official recommendation for me is Masterpiece by Big Thief.
So, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone else who is listening, if you liked what you heard on Double Infinity, or perhaps would like something better than Double Infinity, depending on your thoughts on Double Infinity, I recommend Dragon New War Mountain, I Believe in You. Ryan recommends Masterpiece, both from Big Thief, who also recorded Double Infinity, the album we just talked about, as our next album recommendations. And wow, what an album review, man! This one was this is a wild one.
Yeah, man, and I think in terms of being overall negative on a review, I think I would like to believe I gave a little bit more context to my negativity outside of when we did the Wiz Khalifa review, because I just basically turned my brain off for a lot of that album. But yeah, I'm glad that we can agree to disagree, and it's nice seeing we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. That way it kind of proves that we don't live in an echo chamber.
I agree, and I feel like that's been my role for a lot of reviews as of late, because some of the reviews that we have done where we have disagreed vehemently are albums I chose, whether it be this one, whether it be the Wiz Khalifa album that you mentioned, whether it's Springsteen, Public Enemy I'll throw in there. I'll also throw in Brad Paisley. In fact, I think Brad Paisley might be a really good one if you listen to this and figure what would it be like if they disagreed on a lot of other stuff. The Brad Paisley review is where I would point you to. But I think that puts a bow worthy of kicking into bed for Double Infinity. And Ryan, there's one piece of business left to take care of. The mini-series is over. What are you going to do now?
All right. So since I've completed the miniseries, and during this time of the miniseries being brought to the table and we were experiencing it, there were two basically notable albums released last year in 2025 that we did not cover. And I figured, got some work to do. We got some catch-up work to do. And it'll be fun to dive into big albums from last year. And I kind of decided to do 2 albums that are basically popular or noteworthy from last year for 2 different reasons. One album is a critical darling, kind of like an underground rock kind of thing, and the other album is a massive mainstream album. I'm just going to leave it at that. So the way that I'm going to have you pick between these 2 albums is I'm going to have you pick a Nicolas Cage movie representing these 2 albums. Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be for getting Nick Cage involved.
All right, so for album A, the movie that represents album A is Mandy. Or album B, the movie that represents album B is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. If you have questions about these movies, let me know. Otherwise, the floor is yours. Which avenue are you going to take us down, man?
Oh, that is tough, but I'm going to go with The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
You have chosen, man. And the album that you have chosen is one of the big ones that we kind of have avoided, for better or for worse, in our experience of this album being released. And I think it's time we have no fear, and we decide to find out what it feels like to, again, break a rule in our Hey Listen to This history. And the album that we are going to be covering next week, in order to break that rule, is going to be telling us what the life of a showgirl is all about. And that album, for those of you who have been living underneath a rock, is indeed by Miss T-Swizzles herself, Taylor Swift.
Oh boy. All right. Okay. I had a sinking feeling that's exactly what I was going to choose, but it's what I chose. It's what I chose.
Come on, man. It's 2026, man. We got to venture into this album here, and we got to do it with no fear.
But how could I have known?